All right, we're going to talk to LSU former wideout Dwayne Bowe coming up here on Off the Bench. Bowe left LSU leader in career touchdowns with 26. Still one of my favorite highlights is a screen pass he caught against Arkansas. It wasn't a score. He caught in the open field and ran a defensive back flat into the turf. Finding the highlight, we'll have the video for you. You can watch always inside the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, online at 1045ESPN.com. Hunt Palmer always with us on Friday from the LSU Sports Radio Network. Should be a great atmosphere tomorrow on campus as the weather is right. Man, it feels great outside. How are you, man?
I'm really good. This is going to be an awesome weekend. You get up and put a little pullover on today, and tomorrow is just going to be awesome. I can't wait to get out there and watch a little hoops practice, step right on out to the broadcast, and then go into stadium. It's going to be one of the best weekends we've had in a long time.
When you look at the game, when you look at the matchup, number 2 Georgia coming in, LSU coming off their first loss of the season, what do you think of it?
I think LSU can stand up to them. I'm very fascinated to see how Kirby Smart plays this thing on defense because the blueprint was kind of given to you by Ty Grantham last week. Just send the house, and LSU's offensive line is not really cohesive yet because they haven't had a rotation, and they missed a lot of assignments. But Kirby's MO this year has been to blitz very little. Everybody's made a big deal about how they are last in the league in sacks, but we talked to a guy that covers them on Wednesday night on Hester Show. He said they just send 3 or 4 and say, you can't go 14 plays on us. We'll just sit here and base all day, and you'll eventually make a mistake or we'll get the stop. But I don't think that's the way to play LSU. So we'll see what they decide to do. Obviously, any time you can abandon that and say, well, we're just going to start blitzing. But I'm fascinated to see how he handles that.
One storyline we left out of headlines was that Ogeron said yesterday that both Tyler Shelvin and D. Anderson not going to play. I don't think it's surprising on Shelvin. Anderson, a little surprising. You think that affect the game plan?
Not really. I mean, Sullivan's the same human. So, I mean, I think they put him out there. Everyone has been calling for more Jamar Chase. I think that it's kind of been communicated that he knows the part of the offense that he's out there for. When he's not out there, it's because he's not quite comfortable with picking up a coverage and adapting his route accordingly, and that's coming. But they've got enough wide receivers to get out there and play.
Yeah, I'm interested to see who kind of steps up in the D. Anderson absence. I mean, look, yeah, if I'm that coaching staff, I'm giving like Chase like 4 plays, Terrace Marshall like 4 plays. Be like, look, this is all you need to know for this game. We're going to try to get you on the field because we believe you to be dynamic. Same thing for Derek Dillon and whoever else. Hunt, you mentioned this defense. Yeah, this Georgia defense is weird, man. When you get into the numbers, like teams move the ball against them. They have like good overall yardage numbers. They get into third and manageable. Like you said, Georgia doesn't create negative plays, but what they do is they get stops on third down, they create turnovers, and they don't allow big plays. That is the key right there, right? Georgia's only allowed 5 passes of 25 yards or more in 6 games. They've only had 1 run go over 20 yards. If you're looking for something to key in on this weekend, if LSU's going to have success offensively, you're going to have to crack them open a little bit and get some of those big plays.
Yeah, that's a product of them just staying in that base and making you be solid. But I'm telling you, there will be a chance for LSU to hit a big play or two in the game. And the one that comes to mind last week is right before the half, Justin Jefferson is streaking down the sideline, and Burrow missed him by 2 feet.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go on the road and beat Florida, you got to hit that one. And if you're going to beat number 2 Georgia at home, you got to hit that one. So there are going to be 1 or 2 opportunities for Burrow to make a big play because these wide receivers either get open or a Georgia guy is in the wrong spot. You got to hit it. 1, it changes the scoreboard. 2, it changes the momentum in that crowd, which is going to be awesome tomorrow. And LSU's got to do everything they can to keep that crowd around for 4 quarters.
Yeah, there were a few key elements last week's game. They didn't hit any of those deep balls.
Nope.
Some very timely penalties that, like, more so than just like an average penalty, coming at times when you had a big game that it kind of negated. So, like, the fact that you made all these clear mistakes and you were still right there in it, you could actually paint that if you wanted to a bit optimistically and say, yeah, this LSU team, if they can get that fixed at home, you hit on some of those big plays, and who knows how you fare against Georgia. What about the opposite side of the ball, Hunt? I've heard this offensive line is interesting as well because Ed Orgeron calls it by far the best offensive line that they've faced so far this season. The center is unbelievable. maybe the best center that Lamont Gaillard, however you
Nice rep.
Francais?
yeah, Gaillard or something, whatever. Lamont, we'll call him that. Number 53 is an absolute beast.
LG.
Ed Orgeron saying he's the best center he's seen in a while. A lot of LSU fans feeling like this LSU defensive line is the weakness of this team. I can have that argument, but what's your viewpoint? How do you see this D-line stacking up against Georgia's O-line?
Interesting on the Georgia O-line. Solomon Kinley is one of their guards. They said he had a mild MCL strain on Monday, and he's probably going to play. So that interests me for sure.
Sounds like pain medication.
Yeah, it sounds pretty significantly.
You can play, yeah.
And then Cade Mays is a freshman who's probably going to play at the other guard. They've had some injuries up there. So Florida's offensive line, they started three seniors, a redshirt junior, and a junior last week. I mean, that's a pretty good offensive line. Martez Ivey is their left tackle, who was the number one offensive lineman in the country coming out, and that's a really good offensive line. In terms of LSU's defensive line, I would call them solid. They're just not dynamic. Every once in a while, Fehoko gets back there and creates a pressure like he did on the Franks interception. But overall, you don't see Rashard Lawrence, flying up the edge, which is not his job technically in a 3-4. Glenn Logan doesn't have a single tackle for loss the entire year in 6 starts. But I think what they do best is occupy people so that White and Phillips make every tackle. And last week, Baskerville was in there.
That is their job.
And he made a lot of tackles, but I think the difference is he probably made a lot of tackles where he made contact with them after 2 yards and they got 5, as opposed to Phillips, who's making contact at the line of scrimmage and bringing people down for 1. I mean, and Florida stayed ahead of the sticks the entire game and Franks had no pressure on him. Not in terms of like pass rush, in terms of like he wasn't forced to make plays. He made 1 throw the whole day. The one that set him up for the touchdown.
Yeah.
LSU's defensive front is solid. It's not as deep as I'd like it to be, and it's not dynamic, but I think they should be able to hold up, assuming that Georgia doesn't have the ball all day.
Yeah, it's this Georgia team, and I guess it just speaks to their whole season. It's just hard to know what to make of them when they haven't really been in that fist fight yet. Not a single team that they've played is currently ranked in the top 25. And so, like, you look at the offensive line, and they look incredible. In terms of, like, allowing negative plays, they're actually 3rd in the country for not allowing them. Like, they've been so solid, but have they really – they're just so young. It's hard to believe that they're that good, that young. Will they be exposed a bit this weekend?
They haven't been tested. There's no doubt about that. And this is going to be the loudest crowd they've played in front of. Maybe in Fromm's career. I mean, at Auburn last year, I'm sure was great, and maybe South Carolina was really good earlier this year. They have a tendency to have some decent crowds. It's not quite Tiger Stadium, but it's pretty good. The thing that makes me nervous about Georgia's offense is that they've got a quarterback that I don't think is going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
He's just so solid in his decision-making, and he's accurate, and he's just not going to make the catastrophic mistake. He knows his defense is great. He knows his running game's great. He's smart. He's got plenty of arm. It's the way I felt, and I'm not trying to draw huge comparisons here, but when LSU played Florida in 2009 in Tiger Stadium and Tebow was coming back from that concussion, they weren't trying to go nuts with him, but I knew he wasn't going to mess up. And LSU could not move the ball in the Florida defense, and LSU didn't score a touchdown that day. Florida scored 1. And Tebow didn't make the big mistake, and that's the way I feel about Fromm. I just don't expect him to make a huge mistake tomorrow.
Ogeron has mentioned Jontre Kirkland a lot this week.
God, has he ever?
So,
A lot
is
of
it
Kirkland talk.
decoy, or do they use him?
Well, this is a rare thing that I do have some. I have heard whispers of this. Like, I expect him to touch the ball at some point.
Is that
on
inside
Saturday.
knowledge?
It is a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be in the Wildcat, which he
behind
said.
the purple curtain.
But
there.
I mean, he said it on the radio show. Like, Jontre Kirkland hadn't taken a 1 Wildcat snap all year, and he said it voluntarily on Wednesday.
He did. He did.
And
I
then,
agree.
and then
He said a lot about it.
we saw him go back and for 1 punt last week. So I don't know when it's going to be in the game, but I do expect that he'll touch the ball at some point.
Thaddeus Moss.
I'd like him to help. Foster's just beat up and has to play every snap, and so you'd like a little bit of help.
Yeah. As far as the Jontre Kirkland thing, for me, it's just in a world where you do have Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall and some of that other talent at wide receiver that you have, but you think they maybe don't know the whole playbook. It seems odd to me prioritize scheming up for Kirkland over maybe those guys.
Well, he's going to touch it. That can go the way you want it to go, I guess.
That's true. That's true. So we'll see.
He brings a dynamic to the Wildcat that they don't have with Clyde. They don't have with anybody else, that he can throw the ball. I mean, coming out of Lutcher, he was a dynamic athlete. I think he accounted for 148 touchdowns.
Yeah, I read that the other day. That's
stupid
absurd
to say that out loud.
So look, and if nothing else, him repping at wide receiver, if he is going to be your punt returner, obviously, like we said, hands, the ability to actually field the ball is the first and most important step. So getting his hands improved is, that could be potentially critical. Hunt, you mentioned how good Jake Fromm is. You're absolutely right. He's hyper efficient, doesn't make mistakes, but he's also never asked to do things in volume, right? And so obviously we know what the game plan would be. Shut down Swift. Shut down Holyfield, which is going to be hard to do.
Yep. Try
to force the game onto Fromm's shoulders. But if it does get put on Fromm's shoulders, how do you think he holds up?
I need to go back and look at the box score from the Rose Bowl because I'm assuming he had to play some football in that game. That was a track meet of the highest order. Now, I realize that Oklahoma defense is not exactly LSU in Tiger Stadium, but he had to have lit it up in that game. I just don't think he's going to be fazed by the moment. When you can play in the Rose Bowl, you can play in the national title game as a freshman. You go to Auburn, win.
20 of 29, 210 yards, 2 scores.
Any picks?
No picks.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty
Remember,
good.
that was a game though. Even though it was a track meet.
No, they ran the ball great.
Yeah, Sony Michel was just. I mean, the Oklahoma defense just looked horrendous. Like they might as well have been throwing the ball.